Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. It's Nathaniel from Chessit, here to cover another Chess.com daily puzzle titled Attacking Harmony. This is the December 29th Sunday puzzle, and it's a tough one, so without further ado, let's get into it. As usual with these puzzles, we're starting down 8 points of material. White is up a rook and 3 pawns, and also has numerous threats on the board. For example, white is threatening to take our pawn on a7 with the rook and queen battering ram and the a-file. White is also threatening to take our knight on d3 with his bishop, and white is also threatening to take our unprotected bishop on e4 with his pawn. However, what we have to notice about all of these threats and captures is that white doesn't actually have a check. Despite being up so much material, he can't actually force us to play anything yet. So that does give us one move of leniency during our attacking plan, and that must be kept in mind. However, since we are down so much material, and since white does have so many threats, we're going to have to look for a series of forcing moves that lead to checkmate. And we can do this by first looking for checks, and then we'll get into potential waiting moves that we can play and why none of them work in this moment. So, examining our options for check, we have a couple with the knight e1 check, knight f4 check. We have a couple with the queen g4 check, and queen h3 check. And we have one with the bishop, which is bishop takes f3 check. Now, quickly ruling out the ones that are a bit ridiculous. Knight e1 check simply loses a knight. White can capture with any of his pieces and be fine. Bishop takes f3 check, although tempting, leads to a loss, as white is simply able to capture back and then no matter what we do, escape to the e2 square and get his king to safety. For example, we play rook f8 check, white simply escapes and is perfectly fine. If we look at queen g4 check, all white has to do is capture with his knight, and now he's up even more material, and we don't have any way to proceed from here, and we lose the game. So, now let's look at a few more complicated ones. So, now let's look at knight f4 check, which may be tempting because we see that if the king moves to g3, we simply have a mate in one, queen h3 checkmate. And also, if white moves to king h1, then he's actually in a sticky situation and it will be an eventual loss for white. However, white's king can simply move to f1 and be perfectly fine. From here, we have no real way to proceed. We have a couple checks, which are queen h3 check and bishop d4 check, but none of these actually lead to any mating sequence, and white is able to escape and win the game. So we've ruled out both knight moves, we've ruled out bishop takes f3, and we've ruled out queen g4. And before we look at queen h3, let's first look at waiting moves. If we were to play the waiting move, for example, rook f8, which is our second best move in this position, we'll still be losing, because white is simply able to play bishop takes d3, and from here, we don't have any further real threats, right? That knight is a key piece in our attacking threat, and without it, we don't have any way to proceed. And if we look at rook h8, this could be tempting at first, as we actually are threatening to take on h2, and if white were to play knight g4, for example, to try to protect the pawn, it actually leads to a mate in 8 sequence, because we're simply able to capture on g4 with our queen. And I'm not going to go through it all now, but it is forced mate. So, in this position, white can simply play king f1, escaping. Once again, we won't have any more real checks. After queen h3, white simply plays rook g2 and is perfectly fine and is able to escape danger. So, we've looked at our top 2 waiting moves and see that they don't work. So now let's get into our queen sack. If we were to play queen h3 check, we can see that we're able to force the white king to do one of 2 things. After queen h3, if white were to move to h1, we have knight takes f2 checkmate. So white is forced to capture our queen on h3, and from here we can see that we've put white's king on the h-file, which is easily accessible for our rook. And we also have 2 bishops and a knight that can easily get engaged in this attack and work in harmony, as the title suggests, to deliver checkmate. So, in this position, we've got to be careful. We can't be too hasty and play rook h8 check immediately, as from here, it actually leads to perpetual check and a draw. But let me just demonstrate that real quick. We play rook h8 check. White simply plays king g4, escaping. From here, we could play knight takes f2 check. White's only move is to take on g5. And from here, we could play bishop d5 check. And after white shuffles back to f4, it's just perpetual check. As you can see, we play bishop c7 and just move back and forth until threefold repetition occurs. So we're not seeking a draw, and instead we're going to have to look at why this turned into perpetual check and not checkmate. And that's because of one crucial idea, that white is able to escape with his king to g4. So let's look at moves that cut off white's escape to the g4 square. I can see a couple. One, we can play bishop f5 check, and two, we can play bishop takes f3. Now, bishop f5 check may seem appealing, as it does deliver a check and does achieve what we want, but after bishop f5, we simply have knight takes f5, and we're completely lost. So we do use our one waiting move, and we play bishop takes f3, threatening to play rook h8 with checkmate threats after white blocks on the next move. And here, if we look to any of white's captures, as I said, he has no checks, they all lead to a loss. For example, rook takes a7 falls into knight takes f2 checkmate, and bishop takes d3 falls into rook h8 check. White's forced to block on h4, and we're able to capture with checkmate due to our protecting pawn on g5. So white only has two real moves to prolong checkmate, and that is to play rook takes g5 or bishop h4. In the puzzle, white plays bishop h4, but let's look at rook takes g5. After rook takes g5, we simply have rook h8 check. White is forced to block. We take his rook. White is forced to block once again with his bishop, and after bishop h4, we can see that this time we actually can't capture on h4 because we're missing a pawn, but instead we do have a knight move that delivers checkmate, which is knight f2 checkmate. So that's one option. And another is if white were to block immediately on h4, we have a deflecting move, as we know that if we play rook h8 right now, it won't come with check and we'll lose the game. So instead, we play the deflecting move knight f2 check, which actually forces white to take back with his bishop. His king has no further moves, so white takes back on f2 with his bishop. From here, we can play rook h8 check. White is forced to block, and we play rook takes h4 checkmate. Solving today's hard puzzle and freeing me from this long commentary and analysis. But jokes aside, if you guys enjoyed this analysis, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Peace.